What's up, guys? Today we will be talking with Logan Kreske. He plays baseball at Wichita State, and he is just going to talk about his journey through college athletics and how the Lord has been so deeply intertwined throughout his story and how he ended up at Wichita. It's honestly a total God story, so I'm excited for you guys to hear it and just to hear his heart for the Lord and for baseball and for his teammates. So, hope you guys enjoy this episode with Logan. I know I did, and let's get to it. Okay, what's up, Salted Athlete fam? I am here today with Logan Kreske. Logan, want to say what's up?
How's it going, guys and girls?
Yeah, there we go. So, funny story, I actually found Logan scrolling through TikTok as one does, and his page came up several times actually. And so I clicked on your page, looked at your Instagram, saw that you played at Wichita State and loved the Lord, and figured I would reach out and see if you wanted to be on the podcast. So obviously he said yes. So super stoked to have him on. Logan, do you want to start by just telling us maybe a fun fact about yourself? Who is Logan Kreske outside of baseball?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me and for finding me on TikTok. Yeah, some of those posts are a little more embarrassing than others, but
No,
you got
guys,
to do
they're
what you
really
got to
good.
do. Yeah,
He's
thanks.
being
Thanks for
humble.
that. There's a lot more haters than supporters, so I appreciate the support wherever it comes.
Of course.
A fun fact about me, I don't know. I think I'd rather talk about maybe what's going on in my life right now.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, just so like maybe how my winter break is going.
Sure.
So I've been home since the beginning of December, and
Mhm.
so I've been my break is over a month, and my grandparents are living with us right now, so it's a lot of back and forth and taking care of them and hanging out, trying to hang out with my family and find this life balance at home versus at school, which is two totally different things.
Yeah. Tell
Um,
them where home is for you.
I am from Chicago, Illinois. I'm from a suburb outside of Chicago, but I just say Chicago is a general area, so people can kind of relate to that a little bit more or
Mhm.
know where it's at. Um, so yeah, and Wichita is in Kansas for those of you that don't know, because I also did not know, and a lot of people don't know where that is, surprisingly. But yeah,
Serious.
that's where the school is at.
Cool. So you're on winter break right now. What is your
Yeah,
break like
yeah.
so far?
Well, so I don't really have a fun fact about myself. So sorry that I strayed away from your first question off the bat. But yeah, so my routine kind of right now is I'll go lift at. I used to have a private gym that I would go to, but that closed down. So I'm kind of stuck at public gyms, which I have a really hard time with. It's not really public gyms aren't really fit for. I don't want to say
Collegiate
athletes.
athletes.
I don't want to make that sound like
No, it's
not
true though, because
like
I
stuck
would,
up almost.
yeah, I would go and work out when I was in college in like the normal gym, and I would be doing like broad jumps and box jumps, and it's just like
Yeah,
not
yeah.
what other people are doing there.
Yeah, you have to really not care what people think, which I mean, I
Yeah.
clearly don't if I'm posting TikToks, but anyway. And B, like, it's just, I want to go use two machines at once, like a superset. That's how I work out. That's how you build muscle, in my opinion. And grandpas are always looking at me like I'm crazy, or they're making faces at me. And I'm like, okay, guys, it's not that deep. It's 8 a.m. Like, you can wait. You're retired. I have places to be. It's gonna be okay. But yeah,
That's cool.
I pray for patience in the gym every day.
Super
Um,
true.
yeah, and so then I go to hit somewhere with some of my old teammates. I hit
Fun.
and throw at this facility, and I'm home by noon normally because I like to eat lunch before 1 o'clock. I'm very weird about my eating schedule.
Hmm.
So I'll eat before 1, and then I really just hang out with my family the rest of the day and try to rest as much as I can. I get into bed probably at night around 10 p.m., but the sleep schedule's been a little bit bad, especially with some good Netflix shows recently and some more college football. And I'm more of an NFL guy than I am college, but yeah, there's been a lot of interesting sports on. Like right before you called me, I had the Blackhawks were playing the Winter Classic, so they play
Oh
in
yeah.
Wrigleyville.
Hmm.
So that's a pretty fun watch. But yeah, so it's been really hard to fall asleep on time and try to
Yeah,
balance, like hanging out with my friends in the afternoon or family. But it's been a lot of family. It's been very nice.
that's good. What's your
Yeah.
go-to Netflix show?
Right now I'm watching Squid Games. I
Oh,
watched the first one during COVID, and yeah, a little on the maybe parental guidance side,
yeah, yeah.
but
Explicit.
Yes. And I don't know. I'm kind of drawn to it. The whole aspect of the show is very interesting to me. But yeah, I like talking about shows. Like my family's a big movie family. My mom
Hmm.
is a big movie watcher, so we all watch movies together pretty frequently, and that's some quality time for my mom. My mom works pretty hard too, so whenever she's like, "Let's watch a movie," it's like, okay, this is awesome. We all just get to sit there and do nothing, and also watch a movie at the same time. So it's kind of a two for one in my opinion. But yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's so sweet. Sounds like a good break. I love it.
yeah, it's awesome.
Cool. Well, you mentioned you play at Wichita, and Logan and I, we've talked on the phone just so I could hear more of his story. So I think it's really cool how the Lord has just shown up through, honestly, your whole collegiate athlete story, and I'm sure even
Yeah.
before that.
Hmm.
But would
Hmm.
you tell all of us kind of the story of how the Lord even brought you to JUCO in the first place, and
Yeah.
then on to Wichita, and then just like what that has looked like for you?
Yeah. So I grew up in a Christian household. I grew up going to church on Sundays, but yeah, my baseball route has been very interesting, and God was working in that aspect more than I had ever realized. And I think the whole aspect of religion is having a relationship. And I would call myself a Christian for sure. I acted as a Christian would per se, but I didn't have the relationship aspect. I was missing that portion of my life, and I didn't know that I was missing it. It was just kind of like, oh, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'd have Bible class, and it's like follow the Ten Commandments. Cool, I'm doing all that stuff. Like I didn't
Mhm.
really know any different. You just kind of live in this secluded bubble. So I mean, I
Yeah.
had a really nice childhood, and baseball kind of progressed in a similar way throughout my life. Like high school, I gave it a lot of attention. It was never an idol in my life. I've always kind of tried to separate the two, and baseball isn't who I am, it's what I do. I felt like I kept that in a pretty firm secondary position to my relationship with God throughout high school.
Mhm.
But I was never really scouted in high school. I didn't get looked at. I didn't go to any big events where, I had college coaches coming and talking to me. And my high school travel ball coach, his name is Tom Barnard. He was the first person that had ever sworn at me at my life. Like, I mean, just gone crazy. And I was like, wow, this is kind of like what real life is like, I guess.
Yeah.
And really woke me up to the baseball world, I would say.
Mhm.
So he helped me get in communication with a bunch of junior colleges off the bat, and some D3 schools, some D2 schools. And this is like my junior year in high school, when it really starts to turn for you as an athlete. You're growing into your body. College coaches can finally talk to you.
Yeah.
And I was getting these offers from some D3, some NAI schools. Not that that's bad. That's just not what I was looking for.
Yeah.
So no offense to anybody, but I was just like, I was really undersized. I didn't hit any sort of growth spurt until my junior year of high school, pretty much. I was
Yeah.
5'7", 120 pounds my freshman year of high school, and then by my senior year, I was 6'2" and 215 pounds. Like there was a lot of growing I had to do. So
Mhm.
anyway, in my junior year, I was getting lots of offers from schools that I didn't have an interest in, and that was when the NCAA rules were different. So if
Right.
I committed to a D3 school and I wanted to transfer, I had to sit out for a year.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I really took that into account, and that's vastly different. I mean, this is a whole different conversation. That is
Yeah.
vastly different than the world we live in now. But so I took that into account, and I definitely factored in that my decision. And I thought about it, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not getting Division I offers. That's where I want to be. So I
Mhm.
think that junior college would be the best route for me.
Mhm.
So my coach put me in contact with some junior colleges locally in Chicago, and I was just like, man, this I don't really want to be playing in cold weather all the year round. I don't want to be in Chicago. I mean, Chicago is brutal for those of you that are not from the Midwest. It gets freaking cold. So I wanted no part of that.
Yeah.
And so my high school coach, Tom Barnard, travel, he sent me to Texas. He goes, you and one of your teammates from travel ball, get on a plane, fly down there. You'll visit a few schools. And I'm like, great, this is awesome. We go to the first school called McLennan, junior
Mhm.
college in Waco, Texas. Right, there's not much going on in Waco. No offense to Baylor fans, but there's nothing going on there. But yeah, so I took a visit there, and I think I committed like a week later after my visit. So going into my senior year, I was like really fired up about playing, and it would have been my first high school season playing. So to backtrack a little bit, I was injured my freshman year of high school. My sophomore year, I kind of split time, wasn't as good. I mean, I was pretty small. I was splitting time. My junior year, I sat behind the senior catcher, which happened all the time. Like the junior
Yeah.
catcher always sits behind the senior catcher. There's only one position. So you just learn and you kind of get grandfathered into the position is the best way to put it. So
Mhm.
in my senior year, I was like, okay, this is awesome. I'm going to end up playing. I'm going to start every day. I knew I was a starter. I worked my butt off to get to a good weight, a good height, I mean, not can't work for height, but
Horse and
and
heights.
yeah. And then COVID canceled my year and I was just heartbroken. I was so sad. I felt that was a chance to prove myself and work up from there, but it didn't happen. And, I kind of look back at that and think, how was God working there?
Hmm.
And I think that really I just got to spend time with my family a lot and really get to hang out. I mean, I don't know. I might step on some toes here, but I mean, I was hanging out with my friends, which is not a very popular idea in Chicago. You can cut this out, whatever you need to do
No,
here.
no, it's fine.
Um,
Hey, I was
but
hanging out with
yeah,
my friends too.
yeah, I was hanging out with my friends. We just go on walks so the neighbors didn't see us, like, whatever the
Right.
case was. But so, I think the Lord really blessed me with ability to spend time with my friends and family before I was going to make a really big transition. So yeah, I got to Waco, Texas. It was everything I would hoped it would be,
Mhm.
and really hot actually. I mean, it was 105 degrees my first practice. I was kind of regretting my decision. I was like, well, at least in the cold I
Not
can put on more
snow.
layers. Yeah, in the heat you just kind of got to take an
That's
ice bath or
true.
something. So wasn't too fond of that, but it was okay. And about 2 weeks into practice in August, I got super sick. I started waking up and it hurt to walk around. Like my stomach hurt so bad. I was throwing up, couldn't eat food. And so I went to the doctors. They thought it was water, like the bad water in Waco, bad piping, something. In and out of the hospital, my mom flew down. And it was just, we couldn't find a solution. They did a bunch of blood work. And I really think that it was something mental, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I really didn't know what the issue was because I loved it. I loved my teammates. I liked playing. So I just couldn't really diagnose the issue personally. And as a result, I don't think they could medically tell me what the problem was. So I ended up redshirting my freshman year. And that was a tough experience, but being at that level where Texas baseball is different for anybody in the north. I mean, it's just different competitive. Those guys are playing year round. And you really, I got exposed. Like given I was sick for 3 months, my first
Right.
few at bats back, but I was seeing 94 to 96 mile an hour fastballs and sliders that I'd never touched before in my life. I think the
Mhm.
fastest I ever saw was 88 to 91 miles an hour. So I was like, wow, this is a
Oh my
little bit
gosh.
different,
Yeah.
a different level of competitiveness for sure. It definitely, I grew so much that year, so much. And this is a time in my life where I'm kind of not walking in the right direction with God. I'm not doing
Sure.
things I shouldn't be doing, but it's kind of an afterthought. My first thought is my health, my well-being, and what baseball is going to look like in my future.
Hmm.
And the first time that I went to church in Waco was on Easter. I'll never forget it. This guy, I walked in by myself in Easter. It was like a 30-minute ride to church. I was like, I should just watch online, but I didn't. I went. Thank God I did. Sat down in this end seat and I didn't grab, they were doing, oh, like the grape juice and the bread.
Communion. Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you. Communion. I
Uh-huh.
couldn't find the word. Thank you.
That's okay. Yeah.
And so they're doing communion. I don't have anything. And the guy next to me notices and gives his to me. And I was like, wow, that was just so nice. And that has always stuck with me. I don't know why, but that's like one of my favorite memories of Waco. And
Hmm.
I really tie that memory to Waco heavily.
Yeah.
And the last kind of 6 months of that year were a blur. I didn't play at all, but I ended up transferring and went to a school in Alabama that I was really happy with because we won the national championship when I was in Waco, the junior college championship, and that was a really cool experience. And I had a really good relationship with a lot of those guys. I actually just saw the guy I hit today with was my teammate in the national
That's
championship.
awesome.
So yeah, we built a lot of really good friendships through that.
It's good.
But yeah, I made the decision for myself to leave because I hadn't played in 5 years, in my opinion. Just kind of
Yeah.
back and forth the last 5 years. And I was like, I really need to go somewhere where I'm going to play every day and grow. I mean, I really learned so much that year. And I redshirted. I think a lot of people take for granted redshirting because they're like, oh man, I'm not good enough to play this year. It's like, no, you're growing into yourself. You're figuring yourself out.
Right.
And a lot of people don't realize that. And I think that I'm in a unique position because I've told a lot of people, like at Wichita, there's a kid that got redshirted last year.
Hmm.
And he's like, dude, I'm so sad. I wanted to contribute. I'm like, of course I know, you want to be a contributor on this team, but looking back at it, redshirting was the best thing that ever happened to me. Like I got to do everything that those guys were doing.
Yeah.
I just didn't have to go put myself in a competitive environment to go play. Like I'm facing those guys in live at bats, but whatever happens, happens. I don't really care. It's just nice
Right.
to get the experience, and I learned so much from the coaches there that was invaluable to me. And I
That's
really carry that to my years in Alabama, where my baseball flourished, my relationship with God flourished, my friendships flourished, and I think that the high school building into my freshman year of college was really the foundation and building blocks for kind of trajectory of my college career so far. So,
Yeah.
wow, I did a lot of yapping there. Holy cow! Sorry.
No, that was good. I love it. I love how first the communion story, just how simple that was, but it
Yeah,
stuck with you for so long. And
yeah,
then I know that you found a really good community in Alabama. Is that right? Did you find the church you
yeah.
really liked was in Alabama, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
It was called City Hope,
City
and
Hope.
I I think about after sometimes I think about after graduating, after playing baseball, I'm just gonna go live around the church and just go to that church every day, give
Just
whatever,
live in
however I
City Hope.
can. I can't even, yeah, I can't even explain the connection that I felt to that place. And I don't even know. It still kind of leaves me speechless because I miss it so much. And there's nothing, not that I'm trying to replace it,
Sure.
but find something even remotely close has been so hard. And so it's not like chasing an up and down, but trying to find a constant is
Hmm.
really tough for me in the church area, I would say. So I've leaned in when we've talked about I'm in a bunch of Bible studies, and that's really helped kind of give me a consistent amount of information about God and trying to stay constant in God's word and just in fellowship. And so that's helped a lot. But yeah, Alabama was really special for me.
Do you think that is a place that really like grounded you in your faith and put it back on your
Yeah.
upward trajectory?
Yeah. So my first year in Alabama, it was it was fun. I had a lot of fun with my roommate. My old roommate is one of my best friends, and I didn't know what churches were around. Didn't really look into it in the first 4 months that I was down there. I was really kind of just not worried about it, to be honest. So I was again kind of at this flat line, and life was good, but it wasn't as good as it could have been. And I had kind of entertained the idea that I wanted to go to church to some of my teammates. And finally, one of my friends from school went to we went to church, City Hope, like for Easter service. Convenient. Wow, look at that! I've never even thought about that. Easter service a year later, went to City Hope, and I fell in love with that place ever since. It was amazing. But the following year, that kind of snowballed, and I was that my second year in Alabama in the fall was the happiest I'd ever been in my entire life.
Mhm.
And I again was just so content with my faith, and it just felt like I could not be harmed at all. And it was totally true. Like God was like, not that God has ever left my side, but man, I just felt like his hand on my shoulder everywhere I went. And feeling the presence of God is such a calming thing,
Yeah.
and you don't realize that it's not calming until you don't have it, or you feel
Yeah.
like you don't have it. And
Mhm.
that's a personal, and that's a human feeling.
That fall was like the happiest you have been and just like the most content you've been in your faith. Can
Yeah.
you lean more into the why of that?
Yeah, it was just a consistent conversation between God and I. Like I would sit in silence and listen to God, and then I would talk to God in prayer. And it was just this constant communication back and forth where I felt like it was just so easy. I don't know. And there was nothing. I mean, I was in a town with, I mean, we had more people than we had stoplights. Like there was nothing there. And so I think it was so
Yeah.
easy to focus on what was going on in my life and my relationship with God. Like I thank God every day that I'm at Wichita right now versus an SEC school. Like
Yes.
the like football games, parties, and I don't like any of that stuff, but I would be so tempted to go just because that's what people do.
Right.
And so I like and again, Wichita just is not party central. So I'm super happy about that. And it was the same thing in Alabama. Alabama was just I was able to just focus on the things that I like to do and the things that I love. And it was just really easy. I mean, like going to City Hope every day, Sunday was just the easiest thing ever. I mean, I felt like I could teleport there. It didn't even feel like I drove. It was like a 30-minute drive, and I just felt like it was absolutely nothing. It was so worth it. I stayed for 2 services a few times. It was, I mean, I know it's the exact same thing, but I just didn't want to leave. It was, yeah, it was crazy. I don't know.
That's amazing. I hope
Yeah,
you find your way back to City Hope because that sounds
yeah,
so cool.
me too. Thanks.
Uh, I think your story of how you ended up at Wichita is really cool.
Yeah,
If you also want to share some of that.
yeah, sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
My last few games in Alabama, we were not doing well. We were a bottom 4 team in the league, and
Gotcha.
so
Yeah.
we're fighting for a playoff spot, and it was just a battle every day. We were fighting every day, but
Yeah.
yeah. So our last few games there, I secured a summer ball contract that I was really excited about. It's in the Northwoods, which
Mhm.
for all the non-baseball people out there is a pretty prestigious summer league. It's, top 3 probably. There's an infinite amount of summer leagues.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so it was a really good opportunity, and I got in contact through one of my friends who set me up on this team. Um, his name is Ben Rosengard, and
Mhm.
he's the guy that he's the one I hit with today that I made a really good
Okay.
friendship with at McLennan. So that's tied together, and that you could say that's coincidence. I don't think it is. And so Ben set me up on this team in the Northwoods in North Dakota. So going into my last 2 games as a Coastal Alabama athlete, I
Mhm.
secured this contract, and we need to win these 2 games in order to go make the playoffs. We win the first one, and then we lost the second one. And I was like, man, that really hurts. So, we're all upset. And, you're crying, whatever, sad, sad stuff. And so I get back on my phone, and I was like, you know what? At least I have this to look forward to. Like saying
Yeah.
goodbye to these people is going to be really hard. And I kind of accepted the fact I was never going to see a lot of those Alabama people again because some of them had never been on planes before. Like it is just a different world down there. So sorry, I'm
Yeah.
going off on a tangent,
No,
but
you're
it's
good.
it's unbelievable. Like some of those people just want to work on telephone poles and have
Churn
8 kids
butter.
on a farm for the rest of their life, which is, I mean, awesome. More power to you, but just
Yeah.
not my route. So yeah. Anyway, yeah. So I'm really looking forward to this Northwoods League, and so I get home. I have about 2 weeks at home, and then I pack my bags again and head to North Dakota. And I'm in North Dakota for about a week. You live with a host family. They make you food,
Right.
and I got really close to my host family. They're wonderful people, and I get told I'm going to start opening day, which is like a big deal. It's a big park. 4,000 to 5,000 people are going to be there. I'm
Oh
like,
my
oh man, this is
gosh.
going to be really fun. Yeah, and draw really good crowds in North Dakota because they don't have a professional baseball team. Most people like they go to Milwaukee, or if they really want to
Right.
go see baseball, they go really far. So it's a pretty big treat for them to have summer baseball. And so I'm catching on opening day, and rain. We have a rain delay, of course. It's like a 45-minute rain delay, which is wonderful. Play an inning, another 45-minute rain delay. I'm like, man, this just couldn't get any better. And it's my first at bat in that game. Happened in like the third inning. It's like 9 p.m. It's getting dark,
Gosh.
and bases are loaded, and I swing on an 0-1 pitch, and I feel like a pop in my left hand, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that didn't feel right. And so I go to grip the bat again, and I can't move my left hand. Like my left hand won't close. I'm like, oh, this is really not good. So I asked the umpire for timeout, and he goes, I can't give you a timeout. They just changed the baseball rules. I can't give you a timeout unless you want it to be like an official stoppage where pitcher steps off, and you get like 1 or 2 of those per game. I think, in the summer league. So I'm like, okay, I don't really want to use my team's timeouts. I don't really know, like,
Right.
if we're going to need those, whatever. In hindsight, probably should have taken the timeout.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it's an 0-1 count, and then it becomes an 0-2 count. And I'm like, should I bunt with 2 strikes? I can't swing. Guy
Yeah.
throws a fastball right down the middle. I take it. I'm like, okay, tough luck. Walk back to the dugout. I'm like, hey, I need a trainer. And I
Yeah.
think I busted my hand. So it turns out I broke my hamate bone in my left hand, which is like this. You can kind of see my scar right down my hand here.
Oh yeah.
And so it's a bone like right in this piece of your hand. And to
Wow.
my knowledge, it is useless. It doesn't serve a purpose because they can remove it and nothing can happen. But I don't think that anything is useless.
Yeah.
So they basically say you're going to need surgery. So I'm like, great. So that's an end to my summer year. And leading into that game, I have 2 Division I scouts talking to me and a Division II school talking to me. And they say, hey, we're going to be watching your game tonight. I'm like, wonderful. Text them after the game. Hey, sorry. Try to kind of walk around, tiptoe around the fact that I got hurt and taken out. Never hear from any of those 3 schools ever again. So I'm like, okay, so now I'm not getting responses. I have a broken left hand and I need surgery, I guess. So stay there for the next day. My parents actually drove in to surprise me at the game.
Oh.
And so that they drove 14 hours to come surprise me from Chicago to North Dakota. Not a short drive. They come and surprise me, and I broke my hand in that game. So not a great start. And so yeah, and at the time I was super frustrated by this, clearly, because I was
Yeah.
like, man, what is God doing here? I called a bunch of my buddies on the way home from Alabama. I was like, man, I don't know what this is supposed to mean. I don't know what I did wrong. And it was just so frustrating. And like, they're all like, it's going to be okay. Like, you're going to get through it. And it's just so hard to see it when you're in it.
Yeah.
But looking back at it, it was so important for me to go through that. And so I get home, I go through surgery. I can't do anything. I mean, I'm writing emails every day. I know for certain I emailed every Division I in the country, and I did about 3/4 of Division II. And then I emailed some Division IIIs locally that were smart schools like Chicago, or schools that I would, help me and benefit me education wise. And I heard back a lot, actually, but not until very late. It was probably from June through August, dead, nothing. I mean, that was super stressful. And of course, my family's going through that with me, mainly my parents. My mom is taking me to her work so we can work on emails together while she's working.
Mhm.
And it's just, I mean, that was like actually one of the most stressful periods of my time of my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so yeah, that was really bad. And I was hearing from a few schools. I heard from a few D1s that were like, hey, you can walk on here. We have 5 catchers. You can be the 6th. And I was like, man, that's going to be tough. And there was another Division I that I had never heard of, but they were unbelievable. They had a great year. They're like, you can come where you can be the 4th catcher. You're gonna have to pay 70 grand out of pocket. And I was like, probably not going to do that.
Yeah.
And then on my way to dinner that night, we're going to Pinstripes, which is like a local bowling and food place. It's actually pretty nice. Sounds a little ratchet, but it's pretty nice. And I text one of my old coaches who had just gotten a job at Wichita. So it was the McLennan hitting coach who had just gotten hired at Wichita. And I was like, hey, man, congrats on your job. So happy for you. He's from Kansas. So I was like, really happy for you, man. I know that's where you wanted to end up. You deserve it. We were really close in McLennan, and he like loved my swing. And I was just like, it couldn't have happened to a better person.
Mhm.
And he texted me back and he's like, thanks, really, really excited about this. And I didn't be the guy to pester him, but I was like, hey, man, if you need a guy, like, I still need somewhere to go. I just shot my shot. My mentality was you never get anything out of not asking. So I was like, I'll just take my shot here, see what happens. And he goes, yeah, man, come on and visit tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, if that's what you want me to do, I'll be there. So my dad and I drove there the next day, visited all day Saturday. and got the whole tour. And I was like, this is where I want to be, and this is where it's the best fit. They had two other catchers at the time, and so I was like, man, this is just, I mean, God opening a door for me, if I've ever seen one in my life. Like, all of the strings that have been placed together here and woven together are unbelievable. I mean, the intricacies that God has worked are unbelievable. And
Mhm.
so I committed. And I just remember it like one of the happiest times of my life. My dad and I are walking out just crying, like hugging each other. And we got a 10-hour drive, and I couldn't have been more excited to get on the road. And I drove home, and I had 2 days at home, packed my car, and then went right back to Wichita.
Wow.
And so that's how I ended up there. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, I don't think that anything is a coincidence. But if you look at all of those things and the timeline and the people that he involved, all
Yeah.
to make that kind of stuff happen in one person's life, I think it's pretty special and pretty cool.
Yeah. When you first told me that story, it's just like so obviously the Lord, because you had
Mhm.
to have committed to McClellan,
Yeah,
had that coach, and then had to have had your friend tell you about this travel team where you go play. You
yeah,
had to have gotten injured. That coach had to have gotten a job at Wichita. And
hmm,
then you guys to have that good relationship and he really like you or him really
yeah,
like you.
hmm,
Um, and then you end up at Wichita because of all of that. But in the
yeah,
moment, like you were saying, like any athlete can relate to this. When you get injured, it's I would think probably one of the worst things that can happen to an athlete.
yeah,
And so in the moment, I know that, the Lord has a plan and it's for the good, but I'm standing so close to the picture that it's hard for me to see like what is happening and what's going on.
yeah,
And so I don't know, it's just really cool to see like so much good come out of that. I don't know if you
yeah.
would have been at Wichita if it wasn't for that
A
injury.
hundred, not even close. I would
Yeah.
have, if I was healthy for that summer, I would have committed to any of those schools that I was talking to in the beginning,
Yeah.
without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, 100%. And
Yeah.
it's so interesting to see that the connections that I've made, like last year. So this is my second year at Wichita. Last
Hmm.
year, I would say, was a pretty rough year for me, just
Hmm.
baseball wise. Personally, I mean, it was okay, but being my first year at Wichita was fine. And I was like, man, is this where I'm supposed to be at? But making the connections that I have this year is like, okay, that last year was necessary. So my first year at Wichita I didn't really have a lot of friends. I mean, there were like 40 new guys. They just fired the coaching staff, brought in a whole new coaching staff. And so it was really tough trying to find where I fit in or where you fit out pretty much. And so this year, seeing the connections that I've made with my friends and the type of relationship that we have and the baseball that I'm playing now and the level that I'm playing at now, it was so necessary for me to go through the year that I went through last year of not really feeling like I fit in and not really having a lot of people that I could relate to. And yeah, I mean, it all just is interconnected, of course. So
Yeah.
it all serves a purpose.
Yeah, for sure. And then I know you're currently in FCA at Wichita, is that right? Or are you?
So I went last year a
Mhm.
little bit at the end of the year, but I started to go again this year, and I kind of fizzled out of it. But yeah, so I had my schedule this fall was I would have a Bible study Tuesday,
Mhm.
FCA Wednesday, and then another Bible study Thursday.
Mhm.
And instead, I just changed it to a Bible study Tuesday with my teammates, a Bible study Wednesday that I FaceTime some of my friends from home, because I was like, okay, I'm pouring a lot of my religious experience and life into my people here, but like I think I'm neglecting the ones at home. So I just reached out to my home friends group chat. I call my group chat the home boys. So I reached out in that group chat and I was like, hey, I'm gonna do a Bible study on Wednesday. Whoever wants to join, feel free. And so of course I tried to plant little seeds here and there wherever I can, like individually, backdoor text, whatever.
Mhm.
And but I have about three of my friends from Chicago that join, and we all sit there and talk on Wednesday nights, and it's really fulfilling for me. And then Thursdays with my teammates again, and it's perfect. I don't think that it's necessary to have three Bible studies per week. I'm not recommending that for an individual person, but for me, that really just fills my cup, and it's become a really integral part of my week, and I love it a lot. It's really helped me kind of stay my course, and kind of pursue the relationship that I want to have with God. And obviously, when I come home, I maybe alluded to this earlier, but it's a little bit more difficult when I'm dealing with family dynamic and, fill certain times in my life with, my friends and trying to find an equal balance. So I have a much harder time with that when I'm home. But yeah, those Bible studies have been really important to me, and FCA just kind of fizzled out for me, to be honest with you. But
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. I think it's super important to have Bible studies with your teammates. I think that's really cool, whatever that looks like.
hmm
It's just cool, like if you're having a good game, a bad game, you just know that there's people who are walking in their faith with you and
yeah,
can remind you that, your successes don't define you and your failures don't define you, and they're with you, and we're here for a greiter purpose than just our sport. So I think it's
yeah,
super cool that you're doing that with your teammates
yeah.
and your
Thanks.
homeboys.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna go into the next question I have for you, but what is one of the biggest lessons you feel the Lord has taught you specifically in college athletics?
Hmm. What immediately jumps to my head is patience.
Hmm.
And I'm going to kind of cheat here and use two words: patience and trust,
Hmm.
because every leap of faith that I've taken without knowing it has been a really big step in God's direction. Like I'm giving you all my chips here, and you're playing the hand responsibly. I'm out. Like,
Hmm.
it's all really been up to God. It is, no matter what, of course, but submitting to it is a different thing. And so I think that through everything I've gone through, just kind of trusting that my identity is going to be in God, and God's going to provide me a direction, and, use my story for good, or use what's happening to me for good. And simultaneously, I think patience and trust are intertwined, because I don't think you can have one without the other. Like,
Yeah.
I think that if you're being patient, you're trusting it's going to work out. And if you're trusting, you have to be patient. And
Hmm.
so I think that the two coincide. And I mean, I've definitely learned how to be patient and how to trust over this time span. I think a lot of people around me have learned the same thing, because, they ask me, what are you doing after this year, for example? That's been a pretty recent question. Or what, when I got my surgery, my mom's getting asked by her friends.
Hmm.
We live in a kind of, side tangent, we live kind of in an affluent area, and so it
Hmm.
was kind of weird for me to go to a junior college out of high school. Like, a lot of the kids my age or in my high school were going up Harvard, Yale, Princeton,
Wow.
playing sports at MIT. I was like,
Hmm.
I'm gonna go to Texas and play baseball, and people were like, all right, man, like, you do you, and of course my friends have supported me wholeheartedly, like way more than I ever expected them to.
Hmm.
But um, yeah, I think that my parents and my siblings have also learned to be patient with my process, because they get asked about it probably just as much as I do by their friends. And so I think that it has kind of branched out a little bit, and God has kind of used that in my life to maybe teach others as well, and vice versa. Like, my parents go through things, my siblings go through things that I also learn from, and I think that that's a really interesting concept. But yeah, I've learned a lot through this process, and those would definitely be my two takeaways if I had to pick, well, one. But yes,
Wow, yeah. After hearing about just your story, I think those are actually the two perfect words for you. So I couldn't agree more with that. So,
yeah,
um, okay, great. On to the next question.
sure,
What does being a salted athlete mean to you?
yeah. I think it just means kind of being well diversified in God's works,
Hmm.
and not only portraying and acting like a Christian should, and
Right.
following God. And, like, Jesus was perfect. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying to live as close to as God would like me to live to him.
Hmm.
And I think that that's a really hard struggle, but I think that just being grounded in God's works, I think, is what that means to me. Because I think if you're grounded and humble and believe in what God says, you're going to do exactly what you're supposed to be doing when you're supposed to
Hmm.
be doing it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm pretty particular with the athletes that I want to come on here. I don't want it to just be like, oh, yeah, I'm a Christian, but I'm doing all these other things. And so I think that's something that stuck out about you to me is when we first talked,
hmm
just thinking like, oh, this guy is a follower of the Lord and he doesn't just say it, but from what I see, he's acting that way too. And
Yeah.
so I feel like you demonstrate being a salted athlete really well. So I'm just really happy that you're on. But I have one more question for you.
Can I touch on that before you
Yeah.
touch on your question? I really appreciate you saying that. Those are very nice words. And I also felt that way about you because I wouldn't have just gone on any podcast. And I think that that's a really nice compliment because I think a lot of people not view that in the wrong way, but like it is really hard to try and act like a Christian, or like people try and act like a Christian and fall short and think, man, I'm not worthy. And that's not the case. I'm not perfect by any means,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody is. But
Right.
when you have God in your life, it's evident. And I think that if you're trying, like, God sees it. And so that's what I wanted to say to that. So thank you. That was very nice. That was very nice from you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate that too. That was sweet.
Mm.
Okay, last question. It says, what is one piece of advice you would give to a current athlete who is wanting to follow Jesus and glorify him in their sport?
Yeah, it's really good. I actually had a conversation with somebody about this the other day. I mean, I think that what's really helped me is just realizing that God is in control of every outcome.
Mm,
And I don't know if I stole this saying. I would like to say that I came up with it, but or maybe one of my teammates used an analogy, my roommates, whatever the case may be. But like, you have to put in the work and the results are entirely up to God. Like, that has helped me so much this year, is like, I'm going to row the boat and God's going to steer it. I'm putting in the work, but the outcome is determined by him.
mm,
And I think that it's just so, like, I don't get mad. I mean, I was never really somebody to get mad at the outcome of a game, or, I strike out, I throw my helmet. Like, that doesn't embody Christ for me. That doesn't fulfill me. So
mhm.
why would I do that? And I just think that, like, if I strike out, man, who cares? I'm playing a game that I love, and God's gonna have me hit a home run next step at. Like, I don't know, you never know, but it's just the outcome is already determined. So why stress about something that hasn't happened, or why be mad about something when it doesn't go your way? It's all perspective, and it's all how you look at it. And I think that giving God credit, and knowing that the outcome is determined by him no matter what, is just so helpful. That is probably one of the biggest keys that I could possibly give away, especially if you're a Christian athlete, is like,
Yeah.
literally just give it to God and do your
Mhm.
best, and whatever happens from there happens. Is out of your control. Realizing what you can control and what you can't control is one of the biggest perspective changes that you could ever have. And I think that once you get that, your abilities, not only as a Christian and in Christ, will grow, but also as an athlete, they're just going to multiply, because it just changes your mindset, and it's so much more helpful than, trying to do it all by yourself.
That's so good. I love that.
Thank you.
I
Thanks.
want to go play some sports now and just know that that is your answer.
Yeah.
I think
Thanks.
that's so good, especially in college athletics. And I don't think I'm the only one who has felt this, but
Hmm.
I have dealt with performance anxiety and just pressure of wanting to play perfect. And that caused me to play out of a lot of fear sometimes and
Sure.
mess up when maybe I shouldn't have messed up. So I think
Yeah.
that's just a good perspective to have of like, God has already, like, he knows the outcome. And so why am I stressing so much about, oh my gosh, I just missed my serve and now
Yeah.
my life is over? Like,
Hmm.
it's not that deep, really. Yeah, and the Lord already has an outcome for everything, and he uses everything for his good, which is a promise. So that was really good.
Thanks.
I appreciate that so much.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thanks for making
Yeah,
the time.
Logan, that was so good. And the Lord is honestly just so evident in your life. And I just appreciate how you're so bold in your faith and how you live it out. And that's something I aspire to do more. And I know that other athletes are going to be super encouraged just by hearing your story and hearing your advice. So I appreciate having you on.
Thanks.
And I look forward to seeing how you do this season at Wichita.
Thanks, Gianna. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. And hopefully I'll be back soon for something else or something like this. So we'll see.
Yeah, that'd be sick. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you again.
We want to thank you guys for listening. Did you know that you can help the Salted Athlete by rating, reviewing, and subscribing? Follow us on Instagram at The Salted Athlete, and the more you do this, the more other athletes can tune in and find the content. We hope you found this week's episode to be encouraging and helpful.